Will Justin Fields return to the Chicago Bears as a franchise quarterback next year? Joel Embiid owns the Bulls again. The NHL's Winter Classic is just as dead as Vanilla Ice's last album. And the Chicago, oh boy, and the college football playoff, could that be experiencing the highest ratings in television history? That and a whole lot more as Second City Sports kicks off your 2024 edition on Sports Zone Chicago, and it starts right now. Welcome to the 2024 special edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss McKeevan McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You find my Kenny McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. Also, too, you can catch up on the other live shows that we have airing throughout the week. So if you happen to miss them, you can go back and listen to them and watch them at the same time at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app, Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, please subscribe to us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And while you're at it, please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. And we are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. Let it be your New Year's resolution.
And we're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakino will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakino full powers to give you fools to be a boot.
Happy 2024! Toodles!
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago not now, but right now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on the sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, just hit up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we'll keep our New Year's promise and keep providing you with some of the best here on Second City Sports. We're going to catch up on all the great sports happenings from the long New Year's Day weekend, which we got the championship game is set in college football, some old Rose Bowl vibes here for this matchup, and big ratings for both semifinal games. Also, too, we got the Bulls. You got a split decision against Philadelphia. We'll talk about that and the rest of the NBA happenings. And of course, the rest of the crazy scenarios that's going to be going on in the NFL coming up this Sunday, the last games of the regular season. But first, we're going to do something that we haven't had a chance to do here since we were off on Monday. But
and he's still dishing out pancakes in the NFL.
Herbert this time has the first down and more. Explodes down the sidelines. Cuts in. And finally toppled around the 3. Third down, 8 to go. Fields pressured immediately. Athleticism escapes that one. Fields, are you kidding me? Has the first down and scoots out of bounds. The man is a magician. Elevated to bigger roles for the Bears in the secondary. Heineke, play action. Looks right, then back left, and one of those rookies makes a pick at Tyreek Stevenson. Heineke floated it. Stevenson hauls it in. For a Bears team looking for their 5th straight home win. For a Bears team looking for their 5th straight home win. Fields spins out of it. How did he do it again? Houdini's to the outside. Lowers the shoulder. Has the first down.
For the Bears, you're looking to try to steal one.
4th and 17. Heineke with the flip, spins away, throws across the body. It's intercepted by Kyler Gordon. Falcons with 1 timeout left. 2nd and 8. Handoff. Herbert, first down, wants more, extends the strides, stiff arm, reaches. 1st and goal from the 1. Komet is in at tight end. Handoff to Herbert. Finishes it off with a touchdown. Pivot their season around. So that's part of the reason why I'm a fan personally of the extended playoff field. Intercepted again. Tyreek Stevenson, rookie from Miami, putting on a show at Soldier Field.
And those highlights were from CBS. That was Chris Lewis, Jason McCourty, and Ross Tucker that had the call there. The Bears no trouble with the Falcons, 37-17. Justin Fields threw for 268 yards and a TD. He also had a rushing TD. Khalil Herbert had his best rushing yards of the season, 124 yards and a TD. DJ Moore had 159 yards and a TD. Really no trouble with Atlanta. I mean, I'll be honest. I only watched like the highlights of this game, we showed you guys just now. So I had zero interest in this game. But yeah, well, the Bears did what they're supposed to do against a team that was supposed to be like Atlanta.
Yeah, 2 things you have to be encouraged by with regarding the Chicago Bears. They had 192 yards rushing as a team, and Justin Fields only had 45 of them, so that's pretty damn good. Take away those 45 rushing yards, they still ran the ball well as a team. Number 2, even though the Bears defense only could produce 2 sacks, they produced 4 turnovers, i.e. 4 interceptions, 2 of them by Tyreek Stevenson. We talked about it on the show for the last few weeks. We talked about Montez Sweat and the differences he's made on the defensive line, but the secondary we talked about for the last couple of years. If they stay healthy, they could be good. One of the best young groups in the NFL. We saw the promise a couple of years ago with most of these guys like Kyler Gordon, Tyree Stevenson, and Jaquan Brisker. Now you're starting to see their real talent. As I mentioned, Tyree Stevenson had 2 more picks last Sunday. Kyler Gordon, even though he was injured for the most part of the first half of the year, he's starting to see his potential now. He's starting to play better. He had that other pick the other day. So I am very encouraged by this Bears defense. Offensively, on the flip side, Justin Fields, I thought, had one of his best days overall as a pro. He didn't force it too much, Lakina. He took the sack a couple of times, but he made the right decisions, getting the ball downfield, especially to Robert Tonyan, who started in the place of Cole Kmet. Now, the connection between him and DJ Moore, I thought it was the best connection between those two ever since the Washington game back in early October on that Thursday night. And so we know that the defense is on point, but it looks like this offense is starting to come together. And we'll see what happens when they face the Green Bay Packers in this regular season finale this coming Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that on Friday. But yeah, I mean, look, the Bears, like I said, look, I mean, Justin Fields looked great, probably the best season he's looked all season long, or at least until the beginning of the season. Then the defense, they've been proving better. Stevenson should probably get a chance to go into the Pro Bowl. I think he's had some great. I think he is among the leaders in interceptions, I think. But yeah, I'm sorry, but this is an Atlanta team that you're right there, like in the middle with Atlanta. So it's kind of hard for me to make these kind of proclamations of a team that you're supposed to be. I know people were praised about Atlanta, like, oh, they got a good defense. I mean, one of their top pass rushers was out, and then also too, like if the team was so good, they have a better record. They'd be at the top of the NFC South, but I digress. So, look, you did what you're supposed to against a team that you're supposed to beat. Look, like I said, Fields looked good. I mean, okay, great, but again, I'm not. Look, Fields looked good. I know they were chanting Justin Fields, his Fields name by the end of the game. We'll see. I mean, that's a whole, whether or not he comes back or whatever. I know people have been saying about that for like the last week, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about that at the end of the regular season. So, I mean, if you're the Bears, look, you did what you're supposed to do, and look, you're good. You're unfortunately out of playoff contention. I know there were some crazy scenarios that kept them in it, but they were already eliminated. So I don't want, I know about the, Seattle losing to Pittsburgh. We'll get to that, after the break. And I know there was this, another one that had the tie with the Packers and the Vikings. That wasn't going to happen. So they were already eliminated. So, okay. Yeah, you beat Atlanta. All right. Okay. Bravo. So yeah, you look, the just look good. The defense look good. Okay. All right. Look, I'm not gonna like stay on course with what I've been saying for like the last week about this Bears team. You made some progress. You got 7 wins. With a 4 win, you can keep one of your rivals from going to the playoffs. Cool. Again, your baby steps. You made some steps. That's all you can ask for.
You're listening to a special edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, as we are having our premiere episode of the year 2024. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. If you have any questions about the Bears and Justin Fields, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. All right, Lakina, according to Ian Rappaport the other day, it looks like head coach Matt Eberflus will be back as the Bears head coach next year, as he'll enter year number 3 of his tenure on the lakefront. But I have some couple of concerns. As I said before, and I'll say it again, if Matt Eberflus comes back, it should mean that offensive coordinator Luke Getsy should be out of here. We'll see what happens with that. I'll pose this question to you and to our listeners and viewers out there. If you're put on your GM hat, pretend you're Ryan Poles, after you evaluate everything up until this point, including the win against Atlanta last Sunday, do you have a decision made in your head about Justin Fields, or are you waiting until after the Green Bay game to evaluate everything?
I'm wondering, has Poles already made his mind up? I mean, I think, yes, he's been great the last couple of games, and look at the teams that they beat and what have you, but he's he sort of like has made some strides and improvements, which all you can ask for. But at the same time, though, do you need to make a change on the offensive coordinator side? That's another thing. So I think if you're Poles, people need to remember that Poles and Eberflus, they're both under the same representation. So I know people were wondering, why did they get leaked? Well, they both have the same agent. Mm-hmm. So I think if they know that what the buzz is, and we know Ian Rappaport's pretty plugged in, I think they would know. So I think people need to kind of just chill out that. Look, we said it before the last couple of weeks. If the Bears won, most of their at least 2/3 of the remaining schedule, they've done that so far. We'll see how they do against the Packers on Sunday. That Eberflus going to come back. Now, should Getsy be back? That's a whole different conversation. But I think I don't think Poles has made up his mind yet. I don't think. I know he's came very close to the vest, so it's really hard to kind of in the mindset. But yeah, I think you should bring everybody. I think they might bring everybody back. You'll keep everything kind of status quo, make some improvements. We'll talk about the number 1 pick and whatever at a later time. But I think that's probably where he's leaning. I don't think he's made up his mind yet.
I think he's made up his mind on some things because, as you mentioned, ever since Justin Fields returned from his injury from earlier in the year, he has made some progress. Is he the quote-unquote perfect quarterback? No. But has he made some strides? Yes, as I said before. He's cut down on the turnovers. He's not holding on to the ball as much. He's not trying to force it as much. Even though he's very athletic, he's not trying to force it as much. And he's getting the ball out, which means he's getting the ball out quicker. Remember, before his injury, he led the league in holding the ball for too damn long, close to the 4 seconds before he released it. So, and also, too, remember, we've been preaching on the show for the last couple of years that he needs to learn how to slide. He wasn't doing that before his injury, but after his injury, he's been doing that on a consistent basis. If that's not improvement, I don't know what is.
I mean, look, he could come in, put on a show for his hometown team. Remember, he's just from outside Atlanta, so that could be something, especially since Atlanta will probably be in the top 10. So if you trade back, if you're the Bears, I mean, you could probably put Fields in as a package. But again, like I said, that's a different conversation for another time. We got months to talk about that. with that said, we're going to take a really quick break. And of course, we'll talk about the rest of the NFL Week 17 slate, some playoff, some games that kind of made you scratch your head. The two number one seeds on both AFC and NFC are all set. So we'll see if some players, we've already heard some players are going to be going to stay out this weekend. We'll tell you about that and a whole lot more. Like Keenan McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, our first show 2024. More NFL talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on a special edition. This is our premiere episode for kicking off the year 2024. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter X in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter X. I can't go get the IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left in this broadcast. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid. Let's talk about the rest of the Week 17 slate and a pretty interesting results here. Probably even more. interesting, easy for me to say. The Dallas Lions game that was on Saturday night. Dallas beat the Lions 2019 to extend their home win streak to 16. Detroit had a shot they got the touchdown. Unfortunately, they went for two, thought they had it, but then there's the mix up, whether or not, old lineman was eligible or ineligible, or who was it, whatever who was. And then, they tried it from the 7, still didn't get it. Then it was another penalty on Dallas, and they tried it again. They still, it was just a whole bunch of weirdness there. I'll say this about Detroit. Look, at the end of the first half, they had a chance to go for the field goal. They did not. And they could have just did the extra point pass. Look, their defense actually was able to tame Dak and CeeDee Lamb, and then for the last 2 years, that's what kept Detroit in it. So, you can say though the mix up with the refs or whatever, but Detroit actually had their shots to win this game, and they couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, the story goes as this: Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, told the referee at the beginning of the game, if I choose to run this play, I will use these 2 offensive linemen and report them as eligible. Of course, you said the mix-up that happened was number 68, who caught the ball, Decker. He was supposed to be eligible, but he wasn't reported by the ref as eligible. Number 70 was. If you saw the video, number 70 was now reported as eligible, but the main referee was talking to number. It was a whole ball of confusion. But like you said, the Lions had their chance, especially on that last play. Like you said, Lakina, that second time they tried it, and then the penalty was called on Dallas, which moved the ball back to the 2-yard line. Now, I thought that Dan Campbell should have kicked the extra point right there. And you would have played for overtime, and then you would have had your chances still. And you still would have had momentum going into overtime, tying the game on the last possession. But, after that first play, when that penalty was called, you looked out by that Dallas penalty. After that, you should have kicked the extra point to tie the game to force overtime. But I do like Dan Campbell's aggressiveness. That's part of his personality. But after that Dallas penalty, after that second try, you should have kicked the extra point to force the game to overtime. But what do we know?
Right. I'll say, yeah, I guess we don't know too much. But yeah, like I said, I know Detroit fans were not very happy with it. But like I said, with the field, not going for the field goal at the end of the first half, then after that second time, the second penalty that was called, you should just went ahead and just did the extra point, just took a chance in overtime. But again, I digress. This could be the kind of loss that comes at the back of you in the butt when it comes to seeding. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now, going to Sunday's games, you have Baltimore and Miami. Baltimore just pounded Miami 56-19. It was actually pretty close. Miami actually had the early lead in the first quarter, but the offense for Baltimore kind of kicked it into gear. Lamar Jackson threw for 321 yards and 5 TDs. Gus Edwards had a rushing TD and 68 rushing yards. Zay Flowers, had a 1 TD catch, 106 yards. Justice Hill also had a TD catch. It was also a defense too for Baltimore that tamed them 2 interceptions that they caught from Tua, and he was sacked 3 times. But unfortunately, some of those guys were still out there. Tua got banged up. Bradley Chubb, tore his ACL. He's done for the year. So that's a whole different conversation there. But Baltimore clinches the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I turned that game off at halftime because after the Tua interception, things went downhill for Miami as Baltimore racked up 21 second quarter points. But here's the thing for the Dolphins: they couldn't beat a team with a winning record all year. They'll have the opportunity next Sunday night against the Buffalo Bills for the AFC East Division title. But the Dolphins did miss Jalen Waddle. And number 2, they couldn't run the ball very well. I know Devin Achane had 107 yards for the game, but some of those yards came in garbage time because the Ravens ran the game and blew it away. But that Baltimore defense has stepped up the last couple of weeks. Lakini, you mentioned they're sacking quarterbacks and they're taking the ball away. Roquan Smith, a former Chicago Bear, who got his money last year, he's living up to that paycheck. He got an interception on Sunday. So the road to the Super Bowl leads through the AFC. It goes through Baltimore. Now, can they lose? Of course they can. But right now, they're playing the best right now in the National Football League. And Lamar Jackson is your MVP.
I think he definitely made a case and probably clinched the MVP with that performance. Most wins of 14 plus points with a winning record entering the game. Baltimore, of course, they're now tied with the 2014 Patriots, who won the Super Bowl that year, so that could bode well for them. That's something to look at down the line, but. A really great showing by that. Probably, I think, some were questioning, Baltimore, were they for real? I think the last couple of games, they kind of showed you, yes, they are for real. Now, in the AFC, the Colts beat the Raiders, holding them off 23-20, keeping their playoff chances alive and well. Gardner Minshew threw for 224 yards and a TD. Jonathan Taylor had a rushing TD and 96 yards. On the flip side, though, for the Raiders, 299 yards by Mr. Aiden O'Connell, the rookie. 71 yards for Zamir White, of course. No Josh Jacobs. Devontae Adams, 126 yards and 2 TDs. But it was just really, they made, the Raiders, to their credit, they actually made a comeback. But, the Colts made the big plays on defense. They were able to kind of, they were able to hold them off.
You just took the words right out of my mouth, Lakina. As I said on Friday, Gardner Minshew is a better quarterback on paper than Aiden O'Connell. But as you mentioned, O'Connell held up his own. Well, Indianapolis had to make those couple of plays down the stretch just to hold on for the victory. The Colts, as we said before, Lakina, too bad that rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson is not in there.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably have a couple more wins, but that's neither here or there. But the Colts will put themselves in a perfect position to make the playoffs when they host the Houston Texans next Saturday night.
Yeah, that should be. I'm glad they got a standalone game for that Saturday. Good for them in the AFC South. It might come down to the winning year in this scenario, but we'll see. Again, we'll talk about that matchup coming up on Friday. Now, going to Buffalo to upstate New York, we got the Bills holding off the Patriots 27-21. Josh Allen, 161 yards and an interception. James Cook, 48 yards. Allen had the 2 rushing TDs, and those said hates that, but Cook actually led the team in rushing, so don't freak out, Sid. Bailey Zappi threw 3 interceptions and was sacked 3 times. Again, not the prettiest game for Buffalo, but they've been having these kind of games throughout the season. So, but this way they would have won this one. Now they're 10-6, and they're kind of like, hey, we may have a shot again to win the AFC East.
Well, after giving up that kickoff return for a touchdown, the Bills' defense settled in and went after New England and quarterback Brady Zapp, which they forced 3 interceptions from that young man, as you mentioned. The Bills' offense wasn't that great in that second half, but they did enough just to hold off the Patriots. And like you said, they put themselves in a perfect position. It's almost like it depends on what happens with Houston and Indianapolis on next Saturday night, but it's almost like it's a win you're in scenario for Buffalo in Miami as they will face each other next Sunday night for the AFC East Division title.
A lot of scenarios. I think they're still interesting. There's still 20 teams that are still eligible for the playoffs, which is the most ever. So, they're still we won't go through all the scenarios, but they're about 100. But,
right.
But let's go.
Welcome to parity, folks. 2023-24.
Yeah, exactly. Jacksonville, no trouble with Carolina. CJ Beathard in relief of Trevor Lawrence, 178 yards. No TDs, but he didn't make any big mistakes, so that's a good thing. Travis Etienne had 102 yards and 2 TDs, so he was kind of I know, right? But yeah, I mean, we said that Etienne was going to be showcased a lot with Lawrence being out, so that's what they've been able to do. So yeah, a win that's just what they needed.
Yeah, if you're a Bears fan, you congratulate Jacksonville because with Carolina losing, you have the number 1 pick. Yay! I told you I give less than a damn about the number 1 pick, but we have all season to talk about that. But as you mentioned, Jacksonville did what they needed to do to keep their hopes alive in terms of clinching the AFC South next weekend. Basically, if they win their game, they're division champs, and they'll host a playoff game on Wild Card Weekend. So they did what they had to do. The Panthers is just waiting for the season to finish. All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you as we continue to review Week 17 action from around the National Football League. We'll go up to East Rutherford, New Jersey, as the New York Football Giants fall 1 point short at home to the Los Angeles Rams, 26-25. Tyrod Taylor, the backup QB for the New York Giants, had 319 yards passing, a touchdown, and an interception. Kyron Williams for the Los Angeles Rams had 20 carries, 87 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. And Puka Nacua, the rookie wide receiver for the Rams, had 5 catches for 118 yards. As we said before, with that win, the Los Angeles Rams clinch a playoff spot in the NFC. As we said, coming into the season, the Los Angeles Rams, they were a team in limbo, even though they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Matthew Stafford had his contract restructured. Defensive tackle Aaron Donald was threatening retirement. They had changes up and down the roster due to the salary cap constraints. And right now, Sean McVay, he may not get Coach of the Year, but he's done his best coaching job, in my opinion, all year long. And so with the 9 wins that they have, they're now officially in the playoffs. And with that strong running game with Kyron Williams, I don't think an NFC team like Dallas and San Francisco or Philadelphia wants to play them right now. So we'll see what happens with the Rams going forward as the playoffs will begin in a couple of weeks. But they did take care of the Giants on the road last Sunday, 26-25. In other action, speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles, they dropped one at home to the Arizona Cardinals, 35-31. Kyler Murray for the Cardinals, 232 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. James Conner, the former Pittsburgh Steelers running back, he had 26 carries, 128 yards, and a touchdown for Arizona. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, everybody's been wondering what's been their problem. Why are they not winning consistently? Now they lost 4 of their last 5 games. Their defense has given up 31.5 points per game, and that's not going to get it done. I know you have studs like Hassan Reddick, and you still have Brandon Graham as a veteran linebacker there from their World Championship team a few years ago. But their defense for Philadelphia is not doing well right now, as I mentioned, giving up over 31.5 points per game. Offensively, Jalen Hurts, he still does not look the same as he did last year when he was playing at an MVP caliber level. I know it was a return home, in quotes, for Arizona head coach Jonathan Gannon, who was Philadelphia's offensive coordinator last year, now head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And here's the thing about Philadelphia. I know the wide receivers Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, they have phenomenal seasons, but they've been complaining at times about the play call and about them not receiving the ball as much. So we'll see what happens with Philadelphia, as they had a chance to perhaps wrap up the number 2 seed in the NFC, but with that loss to the Arizona Cardinals, they're going to play on Wild Card Weekend, and they're going to have to win their game next week against the New York Football Giants, and they have to have the Dallas Cowboys lose to the Washington Commanders. If that happens, Philadelphia will be the NFC East champs. But for the Dallas Cowboys, if they just beat the Commanders, they'll be the NFC champs, and it doesn't matter what Philadelphia does at that point. But we'll talk about that more on Friday. To the NFC South, where the Buccaneers had a chance to clinch the division, they did not get it done. It was the New Orleans Saints dominating from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, as the Saints beat the Buccaneers 23-13. Baker Mayfield, 309 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but 2 critical interceptions. Jamal Williams for the New Orleans Saints had 19 carries for 58 yards. And Juwan Johnson for the Saints had 8 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. I did watch some of this game via this computer screen, and the Saints dominated the first half, scoring 17 points. Tampa Bay couldn't get the running game going. Baker Mayfield was forcing the issue, and the Buccaneers looked discombobulated offensively, but the Saints took advantage of that. I know Alvin Kamara got injured at some point during this game, but the Saints defense turned up as well. As I mentioned, they forced 2 Baker Mayfield interceptions. They got home to him a couple of times. And the Saints did what they needed to do to hold on for that 10-point victory on the road. I know the Buccaneers made a comeback of it late, scoring 13 points, but it was just too little, too late. And the NFC South will come down to the last day of the season this upcoming Sunday between these 2 teams. Right in the last of the couple early games, it was the aforementioned San Francisco 49ers who clinched the number 1 seed. They defeated the Washington Commanders 27-10 in our nation's capital. Brock Purdy, after throwing 4 interceptions last Monday night against the Baltimore Ravens, he comes back with a strong game, 230 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Elijah Mitchell, who started in place of the injured Christian McCaffrey, had 17 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk had 7 catches, 114 yards, and a score for San Francisco. As I said before, it was a butt kicking that the 49ers received by Baltimore at home on national television last Monday night, but they rebounded back nicely with a nice 17-point win on the road. The Commanders are looking forward to next season, perhaps coaching changes, while the 49ers clinched that number 1 seed in next week's game against the Los Angeles Rams on the road will not mean anything, and they get the only bye in the NFC. So presumably they'll have just 2 weeks off to get ready for the playoffs. So the 49ers, again, shellacked by Baltimore. They're playing their best football of the year so far as they get back on track with that win against Washington. Now to the late games, and one more early game, I should say, before we get to the late games. It was Houston, Texas, with the return of rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. They get it done by blowing out the Tennessee Titans by the score of 26-3. C.J. Stroud for Houston, 213 yards and a touchdown. Devin Singletary, 16 carries and 80 yards. And Nico Collins had 7 catches for 80 yards. It was all about the defense for DeMeco Ryans and the Houston Texans. The Titans on the flip side just couldn't get anything done offensively as the Texans took advantage, putting up 17 second quarter points and basically put that game away. So the Texans stay alive for the AFC South division title and perhaps for the playoffs as they'll travel to Indianapolis to face the Indianapolis Colts next Saturday night. It's almost in a win or in your in scenario. So we'll see how happens with this young Texas team this coming weekend. Now to the late games. As Lakina mentioned earlier, the Pittsburgh Steelers upset the Seattle Seahawks on the road, 30-23. Geno Smith for the Seahawks, 290 yards and a touchdown. And Najee Harris ran the ball well for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 27 times, 122 yards. George Pickens has been hot the last couple of weeks for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their star wide receiver had 7 catches for 131 yards. Lakina, our girl Maddie Spagnola from Sox on 35th and the Chicago Bearcats on YouTube, she predicted this on our show last Friday that the Steelers will upset the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not going to say I didn't see this come out. I thought it was going to be a hard-fought game, but Seattle poo-poos themselves in the foot down the stretch. And Pittsburgh, be honest with you, from start to finish, they took control of this game early.
Yeah, I mean that's the Steelers definitely had control early on and from the jump. And to their credit, though, I mean Mason Rudolph has been a solid pickup for they keep their playoff hopes alive. And with the fact that of course Baltimore, they play Baltimore on Saturday afternoon, and unfortunately with I'm sure a lot of the Baltimore guys are going to sit out. So Mason Rudolph 274 yards, Najee Harris 122 yards and 2 TDs. On the flip side for Geno Smith, 290 yards and a TD, but it just couldn't get things going, especially on the rushing side. Only 53 yards for Kenneth Walker the third, and they'll give the credit to the Steelers defense too. They were able to kind of tame Seattle.
Yep. Now Seattle is in a win-or-go-home scenario as they'll play the Arizona Cardinals on the road next week. If they win, they'll need some help to get in. Of course, for Pittsburgh, they need a whole lot more things to happen. We'll see what happens between those two teams next weekend. Of course, the Denver Broncos did host the Los Angeles Chargers. As we said, this was the lesser of two evils. Of course, Russell Wilson was sent home by the Broncos last week. And, of course, Justin Herbert on the flip side for the Chargers. His season is overdue to a finger injury. The Broncos came away with a 16-9 victory. Jerry Stidham, 224 yards and a touchdown. Austin Eckler only 46 rushing yards for the Chargers. Lakina, I did check in on this game a couple of times. It looked ugly from the starting, and it was a reflection of the score.
Yeah, I mean that was just not a very good game, and then, of course this game really didn't mean anything for the Broncos, because with the Chiefs, winning and then the Bengals losing, the Broncos have been eliminated from playoff contention along with the Bengals. So unfortunately, this is more of a pride, I guess, win for them. So yeah, I mean, look, hopefully they can finish up strong, and we'll see what happens in the quarterback position. That's really like the bigger story.
All right, speaking of those Cincinnati Bengals, like you mentioned, they're eliminated from playoff contention after dropping an 8-point loss to the Kansas City Chiefs on the road, 25-17. The Chiefs offense still does not look good, but they were bailed out by Harrison Buckner, their kicker, who kicked 5 field goals. Patrick Mahomes, 245 yards in the touchdown pass. Isaiah Pacheco, their star running back, 18 carries for 130 yards. And Rashee Rice, their star wide receiver, 5 catches for 127 yards.
Yeah, Buckner, that was 6 field goals by Buckner, which is a career high for him. And yeah, I mean they couldn't get into the end zone, unfortunately, so there's still some problems with that Chiefs offense, but they still were able to do enough to win. Cincinnati, unfortunately, they just they tried to get going. They scored 14 points. They made things interesting. They were actually leading at halftime, but the offense just couldn't, it couldn't sustain itself. Unfortunately, Jake Browning, had a TD at 197 yards, but it was sacked 6 times. So it was really the Chiefs defense that kind of helped them out on that front. So yeah, very not a pretty win, but you'll take it if you're Andy Reid. And it looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to sit out this week. So they've already clinched a 3 seed. So there's really nothing. They can't get any higher than that, for the Chiefs. So yeah, they probably will sit them. But a nice win for the Chiefs, just what they needed.
And the Chiefs are your AFC West Division champs for the 5th straight time. Now to our Sunday night contest, where the Green Bay Packers eliminated the Minnesota Vikings from playoff contention by defeating the Purple Gang by the score of 33-10. Jordan Love, 256 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Aaron Jones for the Packers, their running back, he's heating up for these last few weeks. He had 20 carries for 120 yards. And their stud wide receiver for the night was Bo Melton, 6 catches for 105 yards in the score.
Yeah, Jaron Hall just couldn't get it going for Minnesota. Was sacked 3 times. He only passed for 67 yards. Kirk Cousins, I guess, he's looking better and better, I guess, at that contract. So, unfortunately, once he got out, I mean, the wheels kind of, after that nice little mini good start by Josh Dobbs, a little surprised they didn't go to him, but again, I digress. That's something for Kevin O'Connell to answer. On the flip side, though, for the Packers, 256 yards for Jordan Love and 3 TDs. Was able to stay upright too. Aaron Jones, I want to see how he does against the that run defense for the Bears. That's going to be an interesting matchup coming up on Sunday. Bo Melton, 105 yards and a TD. Jaden Reed had 2 TDs as well for the Packers. So yeah, so they've set themselves up to be a win in their scenario for themselves.
All right, around this time, we like to do our studs and duds for the current week. Now, for week 17, Lakina, I will give you the floor to lead off. Who were your 3 studs from week 17?
I'm going to say that, for my disappearing act, my apologies for that. Arizona, I mean, what a way to go to Philadelphia in a hostile environment. The Jonathan Gannon revenge game, as they touted it. Look, they could have tanked, but I think, I think Gannon wanted this win more than anything. If you think about it, Kyler Murray, 3 TDs, 232 yards, I should say. James Conner had 128 yards. The defense made just enough stops for them to win that game. 221 rushing yards in total. So nice win for Arizona. And Philadelphia, they've gone off. They might go all the way down to the 4th seed if whatever happens on Sunday. My next studs, I would say Baltimore. I'm going to do this a twofold. I'm going to do Baltimore and San Francisco. They both get big wins. Baltimore probably even bigger, beating Miami. Both teams announced themselves to be the number 1 seeds in both the AFC and the NFC. They get to chill for a little bit. We'll see if some of them play. And I'll say the Rams. I mean, the Rams, they clinched a playoff berth, of course, with a Seattle loss, but they held off the Giants. I know the Giants, fought hard, to get back into it, but they just had to win it. Kyron Williams gained some big yards to try to, to kind of sustain it. And the defense for the Rams, Aaron Donald, he might not, be the same Aaron Donald we saw when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, but he still made some big plays, and that defense did too. So yeah, they're going back to the playoffs. Could be a very dangerous team. So yeah, those are my 3 studs.
All right, my 3 studs are as follows. Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb had 13 catches for 227 yards in the score as the Cowboys hold on to defeat the Detroit Lions last Saturday night, 2019. My next stud would be Khalil Herbert, the running back of the Chicago Bears, 18 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown. And my third stud will be DJ Moore, who's playing with an injured ankle. You would have noticed it last Sunday as he caught 9 balls for 159 receiving yards and a touchdown as the Bears defeated the Falcons 37-17 to improve their record to 7-9 on the season.
Yeah, I want to give my bonus stud to the Packers on their win against Minnesota. Thanks to that win against Minnesota, they rushed for almost 200 yards. Passed for 275 yards total. They threw no interceptions. Like I say, Love was not sacked. It was not sacked. They held the ball for like almost 36 minutes. They've covered 60% of their third downs. No other team in the Super Bowl era has done that. Any of those things on the road, especially. So, big history there made there by the Packers. There, my three duds. Philadelphia. I think I've been saying it for like the last 2 weeks. What's going on over there? Something's afoot down over there in Philly, and I don't know if it's guys are banged up or other stuff happening. On the inside with the defense, especially. So they better try to get it right, or else they're going to be, early exit for them in the playoffs. Let's see. My other dud, Cincinnati. You needed this win to keep yourselves in contention and perhaps maybe do a 1 year in and control your destiny. They weren't able to do it. Who else? Washington. I have nothing. I've got nothing. It looks like Ron Rivera's going to be out. So, that's all I can say for that. And then Detroit, Dallas, the ending of that game, that was just weird from the get-go.
That'll be my first dud. Dan Campbell trying to be slick to the Dallas Cowboys. And, as the old saying goes, karma's a BI, and you can fill out the rest. So I'll give Dan Campbell, after that second try where Dallas had that penalty called on them, which brought it back to the 2-yard line. Dan Campbell should have kicked the extra point to force it overtime. He didn't do it, so Detroit waltzed away from Dallas with a loss. Mm-hmm. Even though they'll probably be the number 3 seed, but we'll see what happens on Sunday. My second dud will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their offense did not show up. Baker Mayfield threw 2 bad picks, and the Saints controlled that game from there on out, as the Saints dominated the Buccaneers 23-13. And my third dud, I agree with you, Lakina, will be that Philadelphia defense. I know where you are away. I was giving out my thoughts that people were asking, what's wrong with this Philadelphia team? Their defense, which now loses 4 of their last 5 games, their defense has given up an average of over 31.5 points per game during that stretch.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had also going back to the Bucs. Oddly enough, that they actually play the Panthers on Sunday, so they went in there and they still control their destiny even with that loss. So we'll see. Baker Mayfield has some bruised ribs, so that's something to look out for as the weeks go on. So we'll see when we do our picks over with our Christine Manica from KXRP on Friday. And our number 1 in the books. Our number 2 straight ahead is the Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Joel B is back and said, that's why he loves playing the Bulls and the rest of the NBA slate over the last few days. Of course, we'll recap the college football playoff. The playoff semifinals, also the New York Six bowl games. Some great performance by some teams, others not so much, and a whole lot more. Lakina McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Busy hour 2 coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of this special edition of Second City Sports, our debut show for the year 2024. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have less than an hour left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago right now available on Roku TV.
All right, let's go to the hardwood for a second, Mr. Brown. As the Bulls, they get a tough, lots of tough one. I mean, they beat they beat the Sixers a couple of days before on Saturday. That was again, no Joel Embiid there. He was resting an ankle injury. Now on the flip side, though, he came back and we just I think I think he showed you why he loves playing the Bulls. He had 31 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists. So he had a triple-double. I believe this is like his 40th of his career, if I'm not mistaken, 40th triple-double for him. Tyrese Maxey kicked in with 21, and also Tobias Harris kicked in with 20. Just hot three-point shooting by the Sixers. They were 40%, 12 for 30 for three-point range. When they hit their shots, they're hard to beat. As the Sixers beat the Bulls 110-97. Some guys got banged up for the Bulls. I know that Kobe White got banged up with an ankle injury. He only had 14. I know P. Will had he was banged up early in the first quarter with an ankle injury near the end of the first quarter. He only had 3 points. So just a tough loss for the Bulls, but I think the Bulls won after those last 2 losses against them.
Last Saturday, Lakina, the reason why the Bulls did beat Philadelphia, despite Embiid not being there, they shared the basketball and they were making their shots and they were playing team defense. Last night, it was the opposite. You mentioned Philadelphia's hot shooting, especially from the outside, and that three-point range shooting around 40% or so. The Bulls only shot the three-point ball at an 18% clip. Obviously, it's not going to get it done for any team. I don't care what kind of level of basketball you're playing. And as I said before, Lakini, you had to have average between 25 and 32 assists as a team to win the ball games. The Bulls did not do that. They only had 17 team assists. That's not going to get it done either. 3 of your starting members of your starting 5 had double figures, but as you mentioned, with the injuries that they suffered last night, Andre Drummond, I thought, was the best out of the starting 5. I know DeMar DeRozan had the most points out of that starting 5, but I thought Andre Drummond, he played the best out of that starting 5, and Ayo Dosunmu, who had 15 points off the bench. Outside of that, Javon Carter, even though he's been playing better these last few weeks, he tried. I know the stats doesn't show it as much, but outside Ayo Dosunmu last night, you really didn't get much from their bench.
Yeah, they really didn't, especially after Kobe went out and P. Will went out. So there was really they weren't getting, except for Dosunmu, they were really getting a lot of help. And so I think the Sixers, like I said, they wanted to kind of get back from those last 2 losses against the Bulls. So especially with Embiid, so I think that kind of shows you why they're they go to 15 and 20. Talk about the Bulls, and they play the Knicks. That will be the primetime game on ABC tonight. So we'll talk about the Knicks in a second. They made a big trade, but yeah. I mean, the Bulls, look, they have a pretty tough schedule. They're going to be, doing a lot of back-to-backs. They're going to have like 15 games in 31 days. The second of those 15. So especially if, heaven forbid, Kobe's going to be out for a little, for a bit and such, with Vooch being out. If you're the Bulls, you want to try at least stay afloat at the very least.
Yeah, and speaking of news on the injury front for the Chicago Bulls, today Zach LaVine is supposed to report to the Windy City Bulls for conditioning and practicing with that team. He may, we'll repeat, he may return to the Bulls when they host the Charlotte Hornets at the UC on Friday. So we'll see what happens with that. But like you say, injuries, the injury bug is starting to creep up on the Bulls, and no time is a good time to have injuries. But the way the Bulls have been playing, even though despite that ugly loss last night, this Bulls team has been playing well, especially without Zach LaVine. Like, we talked about it, that the Bulls do need Zach LaVine's production, but will Zach LaVine help contribute to the team, or will he become that stagnant ball player offensively where he's been known as for his entire career? We'll see what happens when he makes his return, hopefully sooner rather than later if you're a Bulls fan. But I want to see what they do against the Knicks tonight, and we'll see if Kobe plays, and we'll see what can. I think this will be the game for the Bulls bench to make their mark, especially like you said, Lakina, coming off a back-to-back ugly loss last night against one of the best teams in the league. The Knicks, I know they've been struggling here lately, and we'll talk about their win on New Year's Day against the Minnesota Timberwolves in just a second. But I want to see the Bulls bench start to step up outside Ayo Dosunmu. I mentioned about Javon Carter. I know he didn't do much last night, but he's been playing well over these last few weeks. I want to see some of the other guys like Dalen Terry step up tonight. So I think it's going to be key for that Bulls bench to make a difference in this game tonight against the New York Knicks, as you're going up against the likes of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, who had a heck of a game the other day against the Minnesota Timberwolves.
That'll be very interesting to see what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Knicks game tonight. If God forbid, the Bulls are shorthanded for this game, but the Bulls usually show up against the Knicks, especially at the MSG. So we'll see if they can, keep it going there, especially since it's going to be on national television. Speaking of those games from last night, the Hornets upset the Kings 111-104. Terry Rozier had a season high 34 points for the Hornets, and De'Aaron Fox had 30 points. It was their 3-point shooting that kind of let the Kings down in this game last night.
Yeah, and their attention to detail defensively wasn't there in that fourth quarter last night. I did watch some of that game live via this computer screen. The Hornets just made better shots. They were more aggressive, especially around the offensive boards. And the Hornets, I know people expect them to be better than this, but of course, LaMelo Ball's been having injury issues the last couple of years, and they just don't have the deeper talent like the other teams around the Eastern Conference. But it was a nice, surprising win for the Hornets last night on the road.
And on the flip side, though, in the Bay Area, well, just across the Bay, the Warriors got a much-needed win against the Magic, 121-115. Saw a little bit of this game last night. This was the second half of the TNT doubleheader. Steph Curry had 36 points, 4 for 9 for 3, which is actually a shrug. That's not a good day for Steph, but he made the big free throws when they needed to. Jonathan Kuminga, kicked in with 19. And of course, it's actually Clay not having his best shooting night either. It was only 3 from 8 their 3-point range, but they did just enough to win the game. That's what the Warriors did.
Yeah, as we said, the Warriors have been struggling with consistency all year long. Part of it is due to injuries. The other part is, of course, Draymond Green, who's currently away from the team. But as you mentioned, it's got to be those veterans leading those young guys like Steph. Like I said, Clay didn't have his best game last night, but he's going to have to step it up as well. Chris Paul has been tremendous as the backup point guard for the Warriors. I know him and Steph have been playing together here and there throughout the season because of various injuries. But you mentioned some of the young guys like Kuminga is going to have to step up, but Kevon Looney, who's been there through the last part of that championship run with those teams as well. So it's going to be up to everybody to contribute. Now, I was watching real quickly, and I was watching the end of NBA Today on ESPN television yesterday, and Malika Andrews, of all people, asked this question: what can the Warriors do around the trade deadline to acquire that missing piece, a difference maker? I don't know if they can do it because they're under salary cap constraints, and what do they really have the other teams want?
I don't think they have anything. That's the problem. That's the problem for the Warriors. I don't think they have anything to give to other teams. So you're kind of stuck if you're the Warriors. All they can do is just hopefully you can get Draymond back before or even after the All-Star break, and just hope that he's on his best behavior. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now, the Thunder, this showdown here with the top teams, the Thunder beat the Celtics, holding them off 127-123. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he had 36 points. Josh Giddey had 23. Kicked in 23 points. Their 3-point shooting was really the not really a big part, but the unfortunate for the Celtics on the flip side, though. Drew Holiday only had 7 points. That's not going to do it for you. It's after Jason Tatum did have 30 points. Kristoff had 34. But again, there was really not too much to help. Jaylen Brown only had 15, was 0 for 8 from 3, and that was really the big difference. That's why the Thunder was able to beat the Celtics.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of the Celtics players that did not come through. Talking about their stars, you mentioned with Jaylen Brown. Kristaps Porzingis had a great game with 34 points. As I mentioned, Lakina, before in the last couple of weeks, whenever he's healthy, he gets that different dynamic on the offensive front with the Celtics front line along with Jason Tatum. But on the flip side for Oklahoma City, my guy Jalen Williams, he only had 16 points, but he shot the ball well. He was 6 of 9 overall, 2 from 3-point range. He had some big buckets, especially down the stretch last night. You talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who should be an All-Star again this year. He led the team with 36 points. Josh Giddey mentioned with 23, but that Oklahoma City team has a nice collection of young talent. I know they have a better record than many of us expected coming into the year. They're now 23-9. I think their head coach should be in serious consideration for head coach of the year. And as we said before, we'll ask it again. Oklahoma City, I think they're this year's Sacramento Kings. So, and I think they're slightly better than the Kings record-wise this year, but I think they're better than what the Kings were last year around this time before they really start taking off.
It'll be interesting to see if they can keep it up. New Orleans beat the Nets 112-85. Memphis, no trouble with San Antonio. Did you see John Moran with that dunk over Wembanyama? I mean,
yes.
I'm sure that's gonna probably gonna give Wembanyama
Holster.
I'm sure he'll get him back. I'm sure maybe if not this not this season, but I'm sure within the next couple of years, I think he'll probably remember that. Victor has a pretty long. He himself has a pretty long memory, so I'm sure he's probably going to keep that on his list. Going into Monday's games, New Year's Day, the Clippers they're just starting to kind of figure things out. They beat Miami 121-104. Kawhi had 24 and a nice balanced scoring for the Clippers.
Yeah, as we mentioned, the Clippers, they have to stay healthy, i.e. Paul George, i.e. Kawhi Leonard, i.e. to a lesser extent Russell Westbrook, who's coming off the bench. Head coach Ty Lue has some pieces to play with, and James Harden looks like he's starting to fit into his role a little bit. You can score here and there, become that facilitator like he did a few times when he was with the Houston Rockets. So as long as the Clippers stay healthy, they'll be right there. The Miami Heat on the flip side, Lakina, if it's not Jimmy Butler, if it's not Bam Adebayo scoring, who else is going to score? You need guys like Tyler Hero to step up. And Kyle Lowry, wherever you get out of him, it's a bonus. But the Clippers, as you mentioned, as long as they stay healthy, they'll be right there at the end.
Phoenix, you got a bunch against Portland. Utah,
much needed.
Slight upset here. Utah beat Dallas 127-90. Utah's kind of been up and down lately. They're kind of near the bottom, but they've made some quite wins, especially including this one against Dallas. Denver, no trouble with Charlotte. The Pacers with them out upset over the Bucks. Houston.
We know Giannis did score 60 yards for the game ball.
yeah, probably not. Houston beat Detroit, so hopefully this doesn't start for another losing streak for Detroit. Toronto, I'll tell you why in a second. Toronto beats Cleveland, and the Knicks beat the T-Wolves in the early showdown here. 39 points for Julius Randle, and a big trade that the Knicks made with Toronto. Has already kind of paid a dividend so far. OG Anunoby had 17 points. He's a big 3-point shooter. He was one of the sort of like the forward for the Raptors. It looks like the Knicks kind of gave up a lot. They gave up guys like Obi Toppin and a few others to get rid of him. But it's just we'll see how it goes. But yeah, at least they give him a little bit more depth. But if you're the Knicks, but it's gonna be interesting to see what they do here, especially with the T-Wolves. They got a nice big win for them.
Yeah, I'll comment on that trade with Toronto from over the weekend. Of course, RJ Barrett's been hit and miss for the New York Knicks. We'll see what he does as he'll get more playing time with the Raptors. OJ Anunoby, he's been considered the baby version of Pascal Siakam for the Toronto Raptors. He's been on their roster for the last few years. And as we said before, and I'll say it again, the Knicks are looking for that third scorer. I think OJ Anunoby will help out, especially defensively. Offensively, he still has some things to work on, but I think he'll be fine. But the question is for Toronto, is Isaiah Ujiri, will he blow up this team? Because, let's say, Pascal Siakam, the former All-Star from a couple of years ago when the All-Star game was here in Chicago, we saw what he did in the finals, and we saw what he did the next year to earn the All-Star bid. And we see what he's doing now. We're talking about Siakam. He's still one of the top young players in the league. Will you keep Scotty Barnes and build around him and just get rid of everybody else? Fred VanVleet left via free agency to go to Houston to take all that money. And so if Pascal Siakam is the next up by the trade deadline, what are you going to get from him? I think you'll get I think you'll get a pretty fair deal for him. It's just which team has enough to pony up to get him.
Yeah, a lot of people. Some Knicks fans feel as though they give a lot, with Barrett, and I think a couple of second rounders. But we'll see what they do with that. And I'm sure Shinobi will be a good asset for that team. As a second see sports Central, Keenan McGee, Steve Brown with you as we talk some NBA. Going to the New Year's Eve matchups. Phoenix, benefit from a little softer part of their schedule, so they get a good win holding off Orlando, 112-107. Sacramento beat Memphis 123-92, so they beat them pretty handily. Boston no trouble with San Antonio. OKC beat Brooklyn. New Orleans beats the Lakers, and the Hawks beat the Wizards. 40 points, a season high for Mr. Trae Young. There. Now going into Saturday's matchups, Dallas got the best of Golden State in their showdown. Luka had 39 points for them, and it was really the hot shooting by him that kind of helped propel Dallas to that win against the Warriors.
Yeah, you mentioned Dallas have been kind of that. They started off hot to start out the year. Of course, the injuries to Luka and Kyrie especially has dampened this team. But as we said about a couple other contending teams, who's going to be that third scorer for Dallas? And it looks like it's going to be a scratch and call from here on out to the end of the season. But longest Luka and Kyrie stay healthy, I think this Dallas team is better than what their record is right now. We know Luka, when healthy, can play at an MVP type level, and we know what Kyrie can do, even though he's starting to creep up there in age. I believe he's around his early 30s now. So we'll see what happens with the Dallas Mavericks. So like you said, that was a nice win on the road last Saturday night. But them, along with Phoenix, they got to stay healthy. Now. I think they'll be that much more dangerous as both playoff contending teams.
T-Wolves edge out the Lakers. We talked about the Bulls, Sixers, that game on Saturday. Pacers score 140. They outlast literally the Knicks 140-126. Detroit snapped a 28-game losing streak. They edged out Toronto 128-127. 30 points from Cade Cunningham. Of course, they will lose their next game, but like I said, hopefully that's not the start of a new losing streak. Utah beat Miami 117-109. Colin Sexton had 22 points for them going into Friday's games. Of course, Knicks, they lost to Orlando. That's probably why they made the trade for Shinoni. Clippers held off Memphis, pulling away from them. Portland beat San Antonio. Like I said, Phoenix is benefiting from a soft part of schedule. They beat Charlotte again prior. OKC beat Denver. Philadelphia had to pull away to beat Houston, 119-111, Milwaukee over Cleveland. Boston held off Toronto. Sacramento beat Atlanta. Washington beat Brooklyn, and I mentioned about the Atlanta squad. That's probably why they made the trade. From the Knicks. Knicks were actually 0-2 before, had lost 2 straight before that trade, and now they're now 2-0 since. So we'll see. We'll see if they go 2-0 tonight against the Bulls. But yeah, it'll be interesting how that Najobi trade comes out.
Yeah, that's why Toronto lost that game last Saturday. Congratulations again to the Pistons for snapping that historic losing. So we'll see what happens with them going down the road. But that game last Friday with Toronto and Boston, I had a chance to watch a little bit of it, at least the highlights anyway. I know Jason Tatum sat and another star sat. But as I said before, and I'll say it again, the Boston Celtics are the best team in the NBA. When we have Kristaps Porzingis at the 4, you have Jason Tatum, playing at the 3. You have Jaylen Brown clicking on all cylinders. You have Drew Holiday locking it down defensively at the point guard position. Which team can beat them when all of them clicking like that? I don't see any team right now. I know we still have a long way to go, but I don't see anybody beating them right now. Yes, I'm guilty as charged. I did pick Milwaukee to win the NBA title, but we'll see what happens with them as Giannis and Damian Lillard. It looks like they're starting to figure things out a little bit, but they got to have their other stars. I'm talking about with Chris Middleton stay healthy. Malik Beasley is going to have to step up, and so you still have Brook Lopez is still being productive after all these years from the center position. So it looks like Giannis and Dame started to figure things out. Boston has been stuck on the mag all year long. Hopefully we'll get those two matched up in the Eastern Conference Finals. That'll be a hell of a series.
I'm still worried about their depth. That depth, I think that's really my problem with Boston. That's why I'm not too keen. I'm still, like I said, I know they've been playing lights out. They had a couple of losses, here and there, but they're still they got the top record in the NBA right now. But again, you gotta wonder as we begin to get to February and close to the playoffs, we'll see if they can make another trade. To add more depth to their team, because I think that's going to kill you in the playoffs. You don't have as much depth as you can. So still a little worried about Boston, but again, right now they are the best team in the league, bar none. Going to the rest of this week's games tonight, Wednesday, we mentioned the Bulls and the Knicks on ABC at 7:30. Hopefully the Bulls don't completely embarrass themselves on national television, but I digress. Washington and Cleveland at 6. Milwaukee and Indiana. I'm sure Milwaukee will want their revenge from the last couple of days ago. Yeah, so get that game ball from Giannis too. I'm sure he's going to take his ball and go home literally, especially if they win tonight. OKC and Atlanta, Brooklyn and Houston, Toronto and Memphis, and New Orleans and Minnesota. That should be a fun one.
And finish out tonight's schedule. Wednesday, we'll have Portland at Dallas. We'll have the Clippers at the Suns. That should be an interesting contest. Of course, Detroit Pistons will continue their West Coast road trip. They'll take on the Utah Jazz. And we'll have the Miami Heat at the Los Angeles Lakers at 9 o'clock. That game will be televised on ESPN. And rounding out tonight's schedule, we'll have Orlando at Sacramento. That should be an underrated, fun game as well.
Couple of two up-and-comers. That should be a fun one. They're out there in the California capital. Okay, Thursday night TNT games are back. Yay!
Yay! No more Thursday night football.
Yay! I know they're happy. I know the TNT folks are glad about that. Should be a good doubleheader here. Tomorrow, tomorrow you got Milwaukee and San Antonio. It's gonna be the first game of the TNT doubleheader. And the second game should be a fun one here. These two have already had some good battles this year. You got Denver and Golden State. That's the nightcap, the late nightcap, I should say.
I want to talk about that second game for tomorrow on TNT for just a moment. And you mentioned the Nuggets and the Warriors. You mentioned those two teams having had a great battle so far this year. And particularly those two teams were matched up in the in-season tournament. I think with Denver, they're starting to get healthy a little bit. I know that the regular season is going to be a challenge for them. One, because other teams are bringing their A game because they're defending world champs. And number two, health. Mm-hmm. But with this game tomorrow night, I want to see how Jokic does against the Golden State Warriors, because now with the Warriors not having Draymond Green, I think Jokic should have a monster game. So I'm expecting him to score at least 35 points. I don't think that's too much to ask. And of course, you still have Jamal Murray. I know Aaron Gordon is still out due to infection by his dog. But outside of that, I think it should be a heck of a game. I'm looking for Denver's depth outside of Jokic and Jamal Murray to step up. And then for the Warriors, as we said before, can some of the young guys step up to help out Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry? I'm looking for Klay Thompson to have a big game tomorrow.
Should be a fun one between these two. And look, these two have had their battles, the last couple of times they played. So I'm sure, I'm sure Warriors want to get a little bit of give back, especially take advantage of Porter being out. So I think he is feeling better from what we're hearing. So hopefully, maybe within the next week or two, he'll be back. But yeah, this could be a fun matchup. It's gonna. I'm glad to kind of have a showcase game, on TNT for the NBA.
Yeah, you're listening to Second City Sports on a special edition, the Wednesday edition of First Show for 2024 on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you as we talk NBA and the Chicago Bulls. Lakina, we still have a couple of minutes left. I want to ask you about the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know they've been suffering through injuries all year long. I believe Donovan Mitchell is a free agent after next season. I know there's been some talk about him being traded at the trade deadline. Call me crazy, but I don't think Cleveland's going to trade him. They still are right there as far as competing for the playoffs. They just got to get their guys back healthy. I know what they did against the Bulls a couple weeks ago. Max Struss coming home and destroying the Bulls. But what are your feelings about this Cleveland Cavaliers team right now?
I mean, you had guys that stepped up. I mean, look, Jared Allen, he's been really solid. You saw what he did against the Bulls. It's Struss too as well. He's kind of stepped up a little bit. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see once Donovan Mitchell does come back, and it's gonna get a little bit tighter, especially the Eastern Conference pretty much after of course after Milwaukee and Boston and Philly. It's kind of like a free for all. So it'll be interesting to see. They've actually lost the last couple. They lost, of course, we talked about they lost to the Bucks and the Raptors a couple of days ago. But it'll be interesting to see what this team does, especially They've kind of been up and down, though they're starting to kind of heat up a little bit. They're 18 and 15, so they're still kind of like right there in the they're not like they've been completely out of it. But it'll be interesting to see what Cleveland's still one of those teams where we thought that Cleveland was going to take the next step last year. They didn't do it. And now in this case, they've had a lot of their guys out. I know Mitchell's been very solid. He's been back for a little bit, and like I said, it's going to get a little bit interesting. I know Niang, he needs to step a little bit more for Cleveland. I know Karis LeVert, he was definitely the guy that has stepped up a lot with all the guys being out, but he needs more help. And I think it'll be interesting to see if the guys that are behind him, or that's really going to be the key, are going to be the guys behind Niang and LeVert.
Yeah. And you remember Karis LeVert, they acquired him via trade last year from the Indiana Pacers, and he did make a difference toward the end of last year for that Cleveland Cavaliers here. Now on the flip side of the Los Angeles Lakers, it looks like they were starting to take off even at winning that silly in-season tournament. They've been struggling ever since. If you're a Lakers fan, are you starting to worry about them?
I think you should be a little bit worried. I mean, they were motivated because of the money, but again, you still like LeBron. I'm sure LeBron's been saying, look, you still got a lot of season left, so I don't know why they're not playing right now. I know Ray's been inconsistent. Some of the other guys have been inconsistent. Russell's been inconsistent. So really, and Jared Vanderbilt, where has he been? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Lakers do. If these next couple of weeks, I mean, maybe if they don't, play well, then you could say they'll probably be in a panic.
Yeah, I want to bring up D'Angelo Russell real quickly. I didn't think the Lakers would bring him back, but they did bring him back. He had his moments last year, especially being acquired from Minnesota last year at the trade deadline. He did have his moments in the playoffs until that Western Conference Final Series against Denver, where he totally disappeared. But if you're looking forward to trading him, I don't know what you're going to get from him because he's been hit and miss all year long. And outside of Austin Reeves, you haven't really got anything from your bench. I know Christian Wood's been a big disappointment. I know Taurean Prince has been all right, but outside of that, LeBron and Anthony Davis, who I think is having his best year health-wise, obviously, you haven't gotten much out of the other two players that I mentioned.
Well, I think that's going to be something that Darvin Ham's going to have to figure out because, especially with LeBron, he's 38 now. He's 39 now. I should say he's going to be taking some breaks from time to time. He's going to be taking some games off, and I'm sure AD he wants to kind of keep things going too. So might be taking some games off here and there since he's having his best show. But for me, I think they really need a supporting cast. They need to be more consistent. Maybe LeBron should still should ask, hey, look, I'll give you all an extra bonus if y'all play a little bit better. So maybe that'll be their motivation. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, look, if after a couple of weeks, the Lakers are still playing where they are right now, then I'm sure we'll probably start worried about them.
All right, Lakina, did you enjoy your New Year's Day?
Yes, I did. Watch a couple of really great college football games, not just for the semifinals, but also outside of semifinals as well. So we'll talk about that, and of course, some college hoops if we got time, and Connor Bedard and a whole lot more. So let's go to the college gridiron now. After this, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Sidney Brown. More sports talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
We're moving and grooving on our debut edition of Second City Sports for the year 2024. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find Keen McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't scroll again, the IG.
This is our last segment for the show for today's show. You have any last minute questions or comments, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Before we talk about the big games, Lakina, from the world of college football, what were some of your observations from the other New Year's Day bowl games?
Right. Yep. And yeah, I actually got a chance to turn back and forth with some of these games because some were better than others. You know, let's be real. But I will say the let me see if I get my computer up here. But yeah, we'll start with the New Year's Six games first. Oregon, pretty much, figure as I expected. I mean, they beat the, of course, they hammered Liberty. Liberty did, score their opening drive. You give them, credit for that. You thought that maybe okay, they won't be too nervous. Nerves won't get to them. But Oregon said, okay, yeah, we let you score that first drive, but no, we're not gonna let you do that anymore. 45-6, they scored 45 unanswered. Bo Nix, who could have opted out, but look, to his credit, he decided not to. He wanted to play in this bowl game, playing this, which will be his last collegiate game. 45-6, like I said, he threw for 363 yards and 5 TDs, which is a Fiesta Bowl record. Bucky Irving had 117 rushing yards. Tez Johnson, who is literally a Bo Nix's brother from another mother. I'll explain that in a minute. But he has 172 yards and a TD. He's a big, big time wide receiver prospect in his own right. So did you watch this game? If you didn't, I don't blame you, because after that Liberty score, it was all Oregon after that.
Yeah, I just saw the final score. That's all I need to see.
Tez Johnson, of course, they're he and Bo are adopted brothers. His Bo's family adopted him. He was in kind of a bad situation, so his family, Bo's family, took him in, and they've been brothers. And I think going to Oregon, it was just literally what was needed for them. And look, both are great prospects. I know Tez still has one more year of eligibility. We'll see if he does. But yeah, a nice way for Oregon. And look, good on Nix and a few of the other guys. I know Irving, he had the option of opting out. He didn't. So yeah, good for Oregon for finishing up strong.
Yep. I want to talk about the next game, Lakeem. I'm sure that's on your card, about the Missouri and Ohio State. I was reading something on the Twitter machine. I know it can be a cesspool at times. Thank you, Rick Hahn, for that. But Ryan Day taking the brunt of it, and rightfully so to a certain extent. But we have your starting quarterback, Kyle McCord, who went to the transfer portal, now is going to be playing for Syracuse starting next season. And some people thought they got screwed out of the college football playoff. No, they didn't. They lost to Michigan on the road at the end of the season. So thank you very much. But I think they were more affected by the Kyle McCord move going into the transfer portal. I mean, they did not look good in their bowl game.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a good game until like the fourth quarter. But I digress. But yeah, Brady Cook 128 yards in a TD. They actually did have Emeka Aguka actually he started, but then he got hurt, so they had to bring in Devin Brown. He didn't do too well. Then they brought in like Lincoln Krenholtz. He didn't do too very well either. So they really couldn't get it going on offense. And of course, also Marvin Harrison Jr. opted out. So that kind of didn't help matters for Ohio State. Travion Henderson just couldn't get it going on the rushing side either. Now, Cody Schrader, who's probably one of those running backs that you probably have never heard of. If we talked about him a couple of times during the season, he had 128 yards and had that, the TD, not the lone TD, but it was the rushing TD. Luther Burden III had made some big catches and got the other TD. But yeah, I mean, look, Mizzou, that's one of their 11-2. That's probably one of their highest win totals, single season win totals in years. So good on the Mizzou. This is actually a very career-defining program for defining win for that program.
Yeah, congratulations to the Missouri Tigers. I know, like you said, being in the SEC is tough. You're going to have 2 more new members next year with Texas and Oklahoma. And Missouri's been that kind of a middle-of-the-tier program. It's been knocking on the door for the last few years. And like I said, they have quietly have one of their best years in school history. So, hard work and consistency finally pays off. And we saw that last weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eli Drinkwitz, or as not Durkowitz, as I guess the person from I don't know what the heck I'm sure it's not the first time somebody's butchered his name, but nice win for him. And I know they got a good recruiting class coming up. We're talking about Mizzou does. So this could be, even with Oklahoma and Texas, coming in, that they can still get the share of that. So I'm looking forward to see what the Fire Mike Bourbons, as we call it here, from the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Notre Dame, no trouble with Oregon State in the Sun Bowl. Clemson held off Kentucky in the Battle of the Cats in the Gator Bowl. Memphis, and they're kind of they were playing their whole field. They beat Iowa State 36-26. In the Orange Bowl on Saturday, 63-3. No, I'm not making that score up. Georgia just hammered Florida State. Carson Beck had 203 passing yards. Kendall Milton had 104 yards and 3 TDs. I know some people will make the excuse for Florida State, like, they had 30 guys opt out. Well, so did Georgia. Brock Bowers, who is going now, who made the announcement yesterday that he's going to the NFL draft. They had other guys that were decided not to decide to drop the opt out. Talk about Georgia. So to say that that you can't blame it. It just shows that how deep the Georgia rosters are, the Georgia roster is.
You know, I know it's real old news now, but remember I was trying to make the case for Florida State being that college football playoff. They technically did what they had to do. I know Jordan Travis is their star quarterback. His injury changed everything, but deep down, I knew, and I'll say it now. Thank goodness that the committee, even though I have my issues with them at times, like anybody else, thank goodness that the committee did not pick them, because if they would have played Michigan on New Year's Day, I know we'll get to the game in a second. I can't wait. But if they would have played Michigan, they would have got smoked.
Probably worse than that, worse than what Georgia did to them. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, look, you had a Florida State squad that struggled to beat Louisville, who struggled. I mean, come on, let's not split hairs here. I know Danny Cannell. I know that I know a few other Florida State alums have E.J. Manuel, who also played quarterback for us. I know they all have said, look, trying to make excuses, but no, look. No, they had their whatever, but I digress.
Yeah.
Going to the Peach Bowl, a little bit surprised by the score, not really by the result. Ole Miss beat Penn State 38-25. Jackson Dart, who is coming back, by the way, he threw for 370 yards and 3 TDs. Quishon Jenkins had 106. Junkins, I should say, had 106 rushing yards for Ole Miss, and a nice win for a nice finish for Lane Kiffin and his Rebels.
Yeah, congratulations to Ole Miss. Yeah, that's another team that's been kind of knocking on the door in that tough SEC for the last few years as well.
Right. LSU, no trouble with Wisconsin. Auburn and Toledo, they win their respective bowl games. Tennessee, I didn't even bother watching this Citrus Bowl because I already knew what was going to happen. I mean, Tennessee just hammered Iowa, and I know she's good. I saw the score. I'm like, yeah, that ain't no. Only 60 passing yards. Only I think like about 113 rushing yards. So they actually moved the ball, but they just couldn't get it going on the offensive front there. Nico Amanava, I'm hoping I'm saying his name right, might be the new QB next year for Tennessee, 151 yards and a TD. Dylan Sampson, 133 rushing yards. It was basically all Tennessee. So yeah, that Citrus Bowl was just a laugher. Good grief. But those are just the appetizers. Now we get to the main course.
Yay!
Yeah, Rose Bowl in Pasadena. I wish we had a clip of that stop by Michigan. Of course, the Michigan, made a huge stop on Alabama to win. As they beat Bama in the Rose Bowl, the college football semifinals on New Year's Day, 27-20 in overtime. JJ McCarthy threw for 221 yards and a TD. And, look, for me, I think this was really probably like one of the better, this should have been, I know the Rose Bowl has rules and, timing, whatever, but this should have been the nightcap, but I digress. 3 TDs for JJ McCarthy. Jalen Mills, 116 yards. Blake Corum had that big TD in overtime that kind of propelled Michigan. Michigan made the big stops. Jace McClellan had 2 rushing yards for Alabama. Isaiah Bond wasn't really much of a factor to the receiving core. Michigan was able to kind of keep them going, keep them at bay. Roman Wilson had 73 yards and a TD catch, including a big third down conversion that kept that drive alive, that led to Michigan to tie that game. And Michigan going to their first ever college football national championship playoff.
That was a very good game to watch, Lakina. I enjoyed that one, even though it did go a little bit long because it went into overtime, but I enjoyed it. It was 2 very good teams fighting it out. One taking advantage of the other's mistakes early, like the fumble punt from Michigan, which should have never happened. But Alabama scored their first touchdown in the game with McClellan. But here's how I looked at that first half. After Alabama takes advantage of the Michigan punt fumble, which turned into a touchdown, Michigan controlled the line of scrimmage from there on out. I know as a team, they had 6 sacks overall, but 5 of them came in the first half. Jalen Moreau, the quarterback of Alabama, couldn't get anything going. Alabama's running game was non-existent. Now, in the second half, until Michigan tied the game, it flipped. Alabama got into running the football with some consistency. and Jalen Moreau started to become that much more dangerous, running, not passing. But you definitely could made the argument that Alabama should have won that game. But as you mentioned, with those statistics from the offensive side for Michigan, as we said, we weren't sure how many carries that Blake Corum was going to get for the Michigan Wolverines, but he had 87 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, which is still pretty damn good against a very top-heavy Alabama defense, one of the top 5 best defenses in the country in college football. Like you said, J.J. McCarthy had 3 touchdown passes, made some big plays when he had to. That Michigan offensive line, we got to give them credit because J.J. McCarthy was not touched that many times, and you had to give him 2 thumbs up for that. And I know Michigan missed a couple of kicks, 1 extra point and 1 field goal late in that fourth quarter, but they persevered, got down to tying the score, and they eventually won it in overtime. But it was a hard-fought win for Michigan. Now, I want to ask you, Lakina, on that last play when you said that when Michigan stopped Alabama in overtime, did you think that was the right play call, or did you think that Alabama should have spread them out and make Jalen Moreau make Jalen Moreau have the Michigan defense think pass and then run second?
I was talking to our buddy Twan Staley. We gotta get him back on the show. Who covers the Jets for New York Daily News? I think we said the same thing, and a few other people said it too. Like you do a quarterback draw play. I can see if they're right at like the 1 or the 2, and then you do the draw. But
that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the 4-yard line. You had 2 timeouts. You took a timeout, and then Michigan took a timeout to kind of set up their defense. Then you had like 5 minutes to kind of come up with something. I know the snap was low to Milroe, but even then, he's probably still would have been short had he had not, even if he had, the snap would have been low. So I don't know what was the thinking. I don't know what was thinking. I don't know why they didn't give it to McClellan. There were a couple other guys on the receiving side that they could have gotten. To kind of try to make it, try to at least like give him the ball. He probably would have gotten it, or McClellan. I mean, and a couple other guys too that probably should have went. So yeah, that was just not a smart play call. But look, give Jim Harbaugh and his coaching staff credit. They did what they called the game, and now they're going to national championship game for the first time ever. Well, on the playoffs.
Like I said, I thought they neutralized Jalen Moreau very well, especially in that first half. That second half, like I said, Alabama's offense started to come alive with them running the football first, and then open things up a little bit in that passing game. Jalen Moreau barely threw for 116 yards in total for the whole game. But I thought that Michigan defense, I know they had a few missed tackles here and there, but overall I thought they did a hell of a job containing Jalen Moreau in the pocket in that first half, and when it counted, once Michigan offense started to catch up and come back.
All right, so let's go to the Sugar Bowl, the All-State Sugar Bowl. You had Washington holding off Texas 37-31. They're just the second Pac-12 team to go to the championship game. And they would be the first Pac-12 team. How ironic is that the Pac-12 is going to be no more after the school year. But Michael Penix Jr. threw for 430 yards and 2 TDs. Dylan Johnson, he re-injured that foot. He had 2 TDs and rushing TDs for them, but for the Huskies, hopefully he's okay. He injured his foot late in that game. Romeo Dunze, that's a name that the Bears fans really want. So they probably has tried to draft him. He had 125 yards. Jalen Polk is another top receiver. He had 122 receiving yards and a TD catch. But it was really the defense for Washington. Like I said, that defense. I mean, look, they'll give them some plays when they need to, when they do, but they'll make the big plays when they have to. And I think that was who was that crap? I forgot. I keep forgetting. I think it was Javon Green who made that knocked that ball out of AD Mitchell's hands for Texas. You thought that maybe they still had a shot to win that game. Texas did, but to their credit, they were able to knock that ball out of he was able to knock that ball out of AD Mitchell's hands, and that's what happened. And Washington, look, they the Cardiac Huskies, as they call them, and you're finding out why.
Yeah, they lived up to that name, especially during that last drive of the game when Texas had a chance to perhaps win the game. Roma Duzning, as you said, Lakina, he did impress me a lot. He can go get it. And if Marvin Harrison Jr. is now on the board for Chicago, I wouldn't mind the Bears selecting him. I think the Bears will still be all right either way. But what did I tell you on Friday? I said with the Texans, the Texas defense, which is very good, but they've been struggling the last few weeks. What did I say? That especially that secondary is going to be a challenge because Washington has one of the best air attacks in college football, led by Michael Penix Jr. And you saw that with him throwing for over 400 yards. Number 2, I said whoever's going to have the ball is going to end up whoever has the ball last. Texas had a chance to win on that final drive. They didn't get it done, as you mentioned. Washington had a couple of key guys on their defensive side exit the game via to injuries, but it was a tightly contested first half. I know Washington separated themselves a little bit in that third quarter, but give Texas credit. Quentin Ewers, he made the comeback. They obviously made more than just a game of it, which they had a chance to win. But like you said, those cardiac cats, those Huskies, made the great plays when they had to.
Now we get kind of like a Rose Bowl style matchup, I guess, with Michigan facing Washington down there in Houston next Monday. Again, we'll have hopefully we'll have somebody on to talk about it, to help us preview it on Monday. But I'm kind of feeling like this could be one of those things where I know Michigan's the early favorite, but these are two pretty evenly matched teams. I mean, look, we know that Washington has kind of had a tendency to kind of give up some big plays their defense do, but like I said, they make the big plays like when they have to. So it'll be interesting to see what Kalen DeBoer has planned. And Harbaugh, look, he has never been in this situation before to this extent. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams kind of match out.
Yeah, we know that Michigan has a very good run defense, and they have an excellent pass rush as well. We saw that on Monday against Alabama. Washington's defense, you mentioned, it's not a dominating defense, but it's an opportunistic defense. Michigan overcame some early turnovers against Alabama, and they got away with it. But I don't know if they can get away with it here against Washington. And like I said, both teams are playing with house money right now, so we'll see what gives. And like I said, we'll break it down deeper coming up on our shows on Friday, and of course next Monday leading up to the actual game. But I think that Dylan Johnson injury from Washington, their running back, is going to be key. If he can go, I think that Washington will be that much more of a bigger threat offensively. But if he's not able to go, this is going to put all the extra pressure on Michael Penix Jr. And let's be honest here, even though he is very good, you don't want that if you're Washington.
Yeah, that's really gonna be a good matchup. And I think that you got a good matchup for that. I know that some people actually have Washington. I knew that Washington would get into the playoffs should they win the the Pac-12. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they do against Michigan. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is gonna be a very interesting here. Any other college football nuggets before we move on?
I don't know what the ratings are just yet. I don't know if you have them in front of you, but I got a chance to watch the Skycast version on ESPN News. I really enjoyed that view, and obviously there's no commentary. You just hear the noise of the crowd, the sound operations from the stadium. And I did check in with ESPNU. They had the command center, which was very interesting. But I really enjoyed that Skycast where you get to see the plays develop from a different angle than for the traditional broadcast. But I really enjoyed the Skycast of both games.
Yeah, I took the Skycast. Yeah, that was really cool. But I actually like the traditional, because I actually don't mind listening to commentators just because I want to know what the heck is going on. So for me, I think it's cool to have those kinds of options, but I like I said, I'm more privy to the traditional because I want to know who's got the ball and whatnot. So my about 27, 0.7 million. We saw the Rose Bowl, and about 24 million saw the Sugar Bowl. So I think those are both pretty high, even from last year. So yeah, so a really solid raise your ESPN, and that's through across all their platforms, not just the traditional broadcast. So if you're ESPN, gotta be feeling pretty good, and you should get good raise for this one coming up because you got a good matchup between two historic programs. And yes, Washington hasn't won a national championship since the '91 championship. You got to go all the way back. I
forgot about that one.
Yeah, it's Lincoln Kennedy, of course, who was an O lineman for that team. Just got enshrined into the Hall of Fame, the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame, along with Kirk Herbstreit. So There you go. That's just how old. Of course, he played like 12 years in the NFL, but congrats to him and the rest of the Hall of Famers. But that's how long it's been since Washington has won it. So what should they win? Will this top that team? Look, they definitely have more of a, they blew out most of their competition. Talking about the 91 Washington team. This team actually has had to kind of literally kind of slug it out. So it'll be just to see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, both games got a pretty good high rating. So if you're ESPN, gotta be feeling pretty happy about the ratings.
Yeah, and even though Alabama's not playing next Monday night, though that's a team that almost like the Dallas Cowboys, even though you either love them or you hate them. But it's another storyline to that Michigan-Washington game, which me personally I think it is. But could this be Jim Harbaugh's last game as coach of the Michigan Wolverines? That's going to be probably the biggest storyline going in because right now they're heavy favorites to win.
It'll be interesting to see how Michael Penix Jr. finished up his college career. Of course, we all saw it happen in Indiana. Not one, but 2 knee surgeries. Still to persevere. Went to Washington. Was one of Clay DeVore's first recruits when he got the job. So we'll see how they do. He got stars on both sides and such. So yeah, look at that. We'll get more into it with our girl Christine Manica and also too on Friday, also on Monday as well. So should be a fun matchup. We'll talk more about that. Ashley Second Sports on Sports Chicago. Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Some college hoops for a second, and I don't know if you watched a lot of college weekend, but Illinois, just hammered Northwestern last night, and we'll see what they play Purdue on Friday. We'll talk more about that on Friday, but. The Terrence Shannon Jr. stuff, look, you can Google that. We're not going to talk about that, but at least so far, I know they beat Chicago State. They beat Northwestern, pretty handily. But I want to see how they do against Purdue before I can say, oh, they don't need Terrence Shannon Jr. I want to get there. I want to get to that before I will say, oh, well, they're better off without him. I'm not at that point yet.
Yeah, I'll say this about Terrence Shannon Jr. Like I said, we won't talk about the other stuff on here. You can Google that yourselves, but. He's one of those types of talents that when you put the pressure on him, he delivers. He delivers with big baskets. Now it's going to be a collective effort with Coleman, Hawkins, and some of the other guys that are still there. To Dane Danger, who's coming off the bench right now. So it's going to be up to those other guys that's been there for the last 2-3 years to help him and step up and fill in that void. Now Will that player come back? We don't know, but it's going to have to be a collective effort. Remember last year, I'm sure we'll get into more on Friday. Remember last year, Purdue almost lost that big lead at home to Illinois. So Illinois has confidence that they can play with the Boilermakers. So we'll see what happens. I know there'll be bigger underdogs this year than last year. So without Terrence Shannon, it's going to be trouble, but we'll see what happens. We'll get more into that on Friday.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that on Friday when we preview these games. Speaking of Purdue, no trouble with Maryland. They beat them by 14. I want to get to this game, for a second. UConn, no trouble with DePaul, 85 and 56. Yeah, that was pretty bad. That game was over by halfway through the first quarter, but. I want to send our thoughts and prayers to Mr. Joey Meyer. For those of you who don't know, he passed away late Friday night. Our buddy Chuck Swirsky, of course, the radio voice for the Bulls on the score. He broke the news. He, only 74 years old. Joey Meyer was, and for those who don't know, he played for his dad, the legendary coach Ray Meyer at DePaul for 6 seasons, for 3 seasons, I should say, from 68 to 71. He did play in the NBA for a little bit, but he never appeared in a game. He was drafted in 71 by the old Buffalo Braves, the ABA. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah, not the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yep. Oh, well, bravo, Sid. Look at you.
I do not need Google for that.
I was going to quiz you on that. Very good. Very good, my friend. Of course, the service assistant to that for 11 seasons before taking over the reins back in 84. He made the tournament 5 times. He was just Sweet 16 in 86 and 87. I remember the 86 team that gave Duke a hard time. That was actually probably his best performance because there were a lot of injuries that year. They were 16 and 14. They got, because of the extended field, they got in, to their schedule. He went 231 and 158 in his 13 seasons. He coached guys like Rod Strickland, David Booth, Tom Kleischmidt. Of course, he did coach for a little bit as the developmental league, and as a scout for the Clippers. Yeah, aforementioned Clippers. So these are the Buffalo Braves. And of course, he did radio for a lot of years on the Score for I think like a decade before retiring. So I think he did a really good job considering that he followed his dad's footsteps. Of course, that's never an easy task. But yeah, I think he did a very formidable job, especially keeping DePaul kind of afloat. I mean, they went to the tournament consistently in the mid 80s and late 80s into the early 90s. So yeah, that was a Chicago's a really good one, a really good coach here.
Yeah, of course, the Meyer family is part of Chicago basketball tradition. They are part of Chicago basketball history, though. Those two gentlemen, as you mentioned, they'll never be forgotten. They're the fabric of one of the main reasons why Chicago is the basketball capital talent of the world. As you mentioned, you brought some memories back for me, Lakino, but his early success, like you say, he did keep that team afloat. They never quite got back to those glory days of the late 70s, early 80s. But you mentioned those names that he got. Ron Strickland, he's not from here. He's from New Jersey. And he got him to commit to come to Chicago to play DePaul. So you mentioned about Tommy Kleinschmidt. I think he got a cup of coffee in the league, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I know, like you said, some of the other names that you mentioned. But remember, even though they're starting to decrease over the years, especially when this station got back the Bulls and the White Sox, DePaul was still on Channel 9 in the 80s, folks, into the early 90s. And then, of course, cable TV, i.e. ESPN, started monopolizing the college basketball coverage. And there went, let's be honest here, that went DePaul's popularity out the door. Not only them not being that national at the big level competing for national championships, but their television coverage went as well, thanks to ESPN, monopolizing everything.
Yeah, watching some of those games on Channel 9, they had some great matchup against Marquette when Louisville, when they were in this Louisville. And Louisville in the same conference. They were in the same conference at the time. I remember those games, of course, with Purvis Ellison and whatnot. So I mean, just a tough loss for DePaul. It hasn't really been the same since. We'll get to the current DePaul. They're not the time, not the time to talk about that. But we'll talk more about that. But yeah, just want to give our shout out to Mr. Joey Meyer and keep his family in our thoughts and prayers.
Yes, and we'd like to send our condolences to the Meyer family from all of us as Sports Zone Chicago and Second City Sports as they go through this challenging time. All right, Lakina, I know we're up against it, but what were your thoughts about the 2024 edition of the NHL's Winter Classic as Seattle shuts out Vegas 3-0?
Yeah, after the first goal, I was like, yeah, that's it for me. I was just like, I kind of kept an eye because after the Oregon game, after Oregon blew out Liberty and the other games were interesting. I actually catched the Classic. There was a lot of promotion for it, which I kind of found a little bit odd because usually you see a lot of promotion for it. There wasn't really that much promotion. But I'm glad for Seattle that they're the Kraken. This is their first appearance and they made the most of it. Vegas was kind of wonder like, okay, well, what was the Vegas mindset? Were they still in Vegas or something? But look, I mean, a nice performance by the Kraken. Like I said, I just wish it was promoted better. That's really my thing.
I think that's what hurt that game as well. And number 2, Paul Bisson, aka Bissy from the NHL and TNT crew, he got beat down by the Kraken mascot.
Yes, that Kraken mascot's tough.
Oh boy, he got it good.
Oh yeah, that he beat him out very good, and I know I was surprised he able to come on last night. I'm sure we'll see what happens on tonight because they're back at it. I'm sure Paul's all bruised up, Busy's all bruised up now. But yeah, look, don't let that Kraken mascot fool you. He's a very nice mascot, but look, you push him, and then look, Bizio pushed him. So he's a lot like me. That's why I like that mascot so much.
Boy,
that was really fun. But yeah, like you said, I think the ratings for those weren't very good either. Weren't very good. I'm talking about I don't know if they've released it yet, but from what I've heard, they weren't very good. So that's on TNT for not promoting it better.
Yeah, and that's on the National Hockey League as well. All right, Lakina, take us home.
All right. You can follow McKinney McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't scroll again, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG, SCK80. Once again, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms of Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please go to the Google Play Store and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. And while you're ready, please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that Our Radio app. And give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Catch Second City Sports live and live in color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live and live in color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, of course, you get Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV. So if you got the Roku TV app on your television or whatever device you have, just type in Sports Zone Chicago. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and a whole lot more. Everything is right there for you. Catch the re-airs anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV.
All right, Lakina, take us home.
All right, enjoy the rest of the week's games, everybody, as we gear up for the last week in the NFL. And, of course, got some college hoops games coming up as well, some big matches. We'll break that down on Friday as well. For us, I'm Lakina. Stay safe out there and stay warm out there. This has been Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Go Bears. Holla!